So when you look at failure, the reason people don't do failure is because they haven't got over themselves. When I think of failure, I ask myself, do you want to get in the game and fail, or do you want to sit in the bleachers and fail?
Well, that is good.
And so it's kind of like, do you want to watch yourself fail? Because you're not in the game. Because sitting in the bleachers has already disqualified you. There's no win. There's no one ever had a beer and a hot dog and won. Success and failure are intertwined in everything that we do.
That's so good.
Because if I keep failure close to my success when I'm on a roll, it will give me humility.
This is a tremendous conversation we're having right now. You have this chapter in the book, challenge my thinking on this, or explain it to me. You say, know the difference in a good miss and a bad miss.
Huge.
What's that mean?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought it up, Ed. And so what happens is, when you talk about the success, you discourage people. When you talk about failure, you encourage people. Especially when you're a successful failure.
Gosh, that's so true.
It's so
My
encouraging.
gosh. What's the Bible say about failure? You know, when you have the camera guys going, amen, they're nodding, you know, you're spitting truth. Welcome back to the show, everybody. So today is obviously my favorite day of the year. About once a year, I get a chance to have this man on our show, and hopefully that'll happen more and more in 2026. But let me just tell you about this man. Number one, you all know his accolades. He's the premier leadership expert in the world the last 50 years of my life.
That means I'm old.
Number one. Well, it means I'm old, 50 years. But he sold, I don't know, what did he sell? 35 million books. He's written 100 different books. And that's not what I love about him, even though he's the best in the world at what he does. I'll just tell you all personally that, you know, since my father's passed away, which was about 4 or 5 years ago, this man sort of fulfills that role for me in my life of the man that I look up to the most. And he's my hero. He's the person that I'll never, ever live up to the shoes that he's walked in, but they're the ones I would love to try to fill in my life. I admire him tremendously. He's as good a human being as I've ever met in my life. And so today we're going to talk about his new book, which I've specialized in this thing called failure. So I'm really glad you wrote this book. It's called How to Get a Return on Failure, Fail Smarter, Return Stronger, with this man, John Maxwell. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Oh my gosh, Ed, it's so good to be with you. I love you so much. And, you know, I wish everybody could have the relationship that we have. You know, everybody needs to have somebody that they care for and that they learn from and grow with.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, when I think of you and I, we're better together.
Thank you. Well, I'm certainly better. My life's changed since I've known you.
Yeah.
You know one thing I want to tell you, just tell the audience too, you know, when I make decisions, I used to think, obviously I know we have Christ centered in our lives, but I'm talking about men that I know.
Sure.
I used to think, how would my dad handle this? And since my dad's passed away, the biggest compliment I could give you is I always think, how would John handle this? That's sort of my barometer. I just want you to know that.
Thank you. Well, I want to handle it well, my friend. Although, how would John handle this? We're going to talk about failure, which is my spiritual gift. So
it's your spiritual. So that's the one thing I want to know. It is the number one thing, would you agree, that probably holds people back from even making an effort in the first place. So let's frame, when I say failure, just that word, what comes to mind for you when you hear that first?
Well, for everybody, it's negative. I very seldom will you ever run into a person that you put the word failure in front of them and they think good things.
Right.
And so it's already a weight. It's a weight mentally. It's a weight emotionally. It's a weight psychologically on people. And so I wrote the book really to help them understand that it doesn't have to be a liability. It truly can be an asset. But it cannot be an asset until we change the way we think about failure and embrace it. And when you think of mentors, Ed, Robert Schuller, who was the pastor at Crystal Cathedral, when I was 33, he found me. And he called me and he said, I want you to come into the Crystal Cathedral. I want to meet you. I want you to speak for me. I'm hearing a lot about you. So I'm just a kid. And we're having our first dinner, and he asked me, he said, what's your greatest challenge? I said, I don't think I always take enough risk. I think that I'm holding back a little bit. So we talked about failure, and he said to me that day, John, if failure were not possible, what would you attempt to accomplish? Well, if failure is not possible, that just takes the whole lid off, and will you try anything?
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it's a great question because failure is very possible. So I think it's not a realistic question, but it was a good question that led me to a great question. You know, you don't get to great until you get to good. It's kind of it's a process. So after about 9 months of asking myself if failure were not possible, would I do this? Yes, and so I went it. I came back with if failure were possible, but you knew if it happened, it was going to help you.
That's a great question.
That's a great question. And I started asking myself that question. I've done that now for many, many years. This would have been, well, I was 33, I'm 78, so do the math. So this has been a long time ago. But when I changed the question, I found I changed the frame of mind.
Yeah, you've reframed it.
Yeah, we reframed the question. Now you can get the mind where it needs to be. And so how to receive a return on failure is really about, let me give you the right perspective, because how we view things is how we do things. You and I both know that. Perspective is everything. And I mean, outside of sharing my faith, if I could do one thing for any person, I would help them with perspective, because that's going to really make them or break them. And I think it's true with failure, too. My perspective of failure determines whether it's an asset or a liability, and return on failure is all about the perspective, the right perspective of failure. Now it becomes an asset.
Wow.
Not a detriment.
I have to tell you, when you do interviews like this, you're supposed to go, this is such an important topic. But it is so important. So my son Max is here today. Last week I was with my daughter, and she's graduating college, and she's going to get into sales and probably real estate. And she's very talented. She's a closer. She can persuade. She's good with people. She has all that stuff. And she says, then Daddy, why are you not completely sure that this is for me? And I said, honey, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know how you'll deal with failure.
Yeah.
And I think that more than anything almost in someone's career and in life defines them. Maybe even more than talent, maybe even more than skills. I don't know how you're going to deal when you miss 6 sales in a row, or 4 people stand you up, or you embarrass yourself to some extent. And I said to her, and I want your perspective on this, I said, ironically, I kind of think people that are really afraid to fail are almost like egomaniacs.
Yeah,
it's just the flip side of the coin,
Yeah.
meaning they've made so much of it about them.
Yeah.
And you write about that in the book. What's your perspective on it? Because I think most people think, oh, no, egomaniacs are very confident people who aren't afraid to fail.
Not true. Not
Okay.
true at all. In fact, I tell people, it's very simple. Until you get over yourself, you're never going to be a highly successful person, because it's not about me. It's if you're a great communicator. Get over yourself. It's all about the audience.
That's right.
So when you look at failure, the reason people don't do failure is because they haven't got over themselves well. The other day,
This is so true.
I started writing this the other day, so it's brand new, so it's fresh. So I hope it's good, but I don't know if it's good because I'm just working on it.
I'll tell you.
But okay, thank you. Here's what I think. When I think of failure, I ask myself, do you want to get in the game and fail, or do you want to sit in the bleachers and fail?
Well, that is good.
And so it's kind of like, do you want to watch yourself fail because you're not in the game? Because sitting in the bleachers has already disqualified you. There's no win. There's no one ever had a beer and a hot dog and won. You know what I'm saying?
Good.
So, but the reason we don't get into the game is because we don't want to lose. Because we want to look good in the eyes of people, and so we want that kind of favor. So anytime I'm concerned about how I look to others,
Yes.
I'm in trouble. Not because I'm not trying to give a total disregard for just do anything you want to do. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I have to realize that with one trifling small exception in this world, the world's composed of other people. It's just there's John, but then there's billions, and I got to get off of John and onto the billions to be able to now be comfortable with the fact that I'm not always going to hit it. Linda, who's been with me at Edgar's for 39 years as my personal assistant, all the way up, I drove from where I lived up here for this, and so we had about an hour and a half conversation, and she said something very interesting. She said, John, I think your secret sauce, she says, I look at it, she said, your secret sauce is that you don't have to win, but you do have to learn. And she said, you jump the fence very quickly. What's over there? You're curious. I got to find out what I don't know yet, because when you don't know, the thing you know is you need to know more than you know. So, but she said your ability to not only, she said, and you do it first. She said do it before anyone else.
Yes.
But she said you do it first because it's not about you. And she said and that's your secret sauce. Well, I don't know if that's my secret sauce, but I do know this. I do know this, that when people hold back, almost every time, they don't hold back because what's the right decision. They hold back because what's going to happen to me.
Right. Or what are people going to think about me?
That's exactly right.
It's interesting you say that because I was with, just so timely this book is. And by the way, make sure you guys go get the book, and we're going to talk about it again at the end, specifically the book itself. But I was working with one of the PGA Tour players that I work with, a golfer.
Yeah.
And he literally said to me, "I'm afraid I'm going to miss the putt." And I said, "No, you're not." He goes, "What do you mean?" He says, "No, I'm afraid I'm going to miss the putt." And I said, "I can promise you, you're not afraid of it. It's just a ball not going in a hole. It's not the end of your life." I said, "You're afraid of what people are going to think about you if you miss the putt."
Totally.
Right?
And here's the deal. If you're on the putting range all by yourself,
Right.
and you're putting, do you have, oh my gosh, I'm afraid I'm going to miss this. That doesn't even enter your mind.
Correct.
It's like I was in the Pro-Am at Pebble Beach for 6 straight years, and my brother and I were talking one day. He said, "John, doesn't it make you nervous? I mean, you got thousands of people out there. They're watching you play golf. Doesn't that make you nervous?" I said, "Not at all." He said, "Why not?" I said, "Because they didn't come to watch me play golf." Get over yourself.
Yeah.
There wasn't one person that went to Pebble Beach and said, "Boy, I'd like to see Fat Man John swing." They came to see the pros. They came to see you know what they're wanting for Fat John? Would he putt and get out of the way so I could watch a real putt?
Watch the real player.
I want to watch somebody who can really hit a golf ball. Well, that's a different mindset. But if a person says they're afraid of missing the putt, they're afraid of what people will think, because when they were on the putting green by themselves, they weren't afraid of missing the putt.
1,000%. So what does it mean? Help me frame this so I can help people even in my coaching. One of the things in the book, I think it's chapter 2, is keep failure and success together. Is that what it says?
This.
What does that mean?
Well, first of all, I've never heard anybody talk about it.
Me either.
One of the things I'm very excited about this book. First of all, this is my 3rd failure book. You understand?
Yes.
I wrote Failing Forward, which was a $1 million seller.
Yes.
It was my first failing book. Then I wrote Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn. And then I wrote this one. And somebody said, "Well, why'd you write 3?" I said, "Because I'm really good at it." There's some. Please let me talk to you about failure. Success, I'm not sure, but failure, I'm really good. I'm really good at failure in that process. So I've never heard anybody talk about this. Failure and success are meant to be very close together, but our culture separates them. Succeed, don't fail, do it right, don't mess it up.
Right.
And we put them as far apart as we possibly can. One's good, one's bad, one you got to do, one you don't want to ever do. And we separate them, but think about it. There's no reality to that at all. In my life, in your life, in everybody that's part of this podcast, they've never had a time where they had 3 days of all success. And then on Thursday, they had 2 days of all failure. Success and failure are intertwined in everything that we do. And every month, I've done this for over 30 years. I have a learning lunch where I sit down with somebody bigger, better, faster, smarter than me, and I ask them 7 questions. And one of the questions I ask them is, what's the most important lesson you've ever learned in your life? Now, I've done that for over 30 years. Do the math. That's 300-400 people, different people I've talked to. Every time I ask them, what's the most important lesson you've ever learned in your life? Every time. Not sometimes, not most time. When they tell me their story, failure is in that story.
Incredible.
I've never heard a success, most important lesson I've ever learned without some kind of a miss, a loss. Oh my gosh, I woke up, I didn't have any idea. It's always in there. So, even at the core of your greatest moments, failure is there. So, here's why you got to keep them together. You need to keep success and failure together because, Ed, they balance each other out.
That's so good. Yes.
So I'm over here and I'm just on a roll. I'm Midas touch. It's all gold. Success. Woo! Touchdown. Here we go. I better keep failure right beside that, because you know what Bill Gates said, success is a lousy teacher. It makes people think they can't lose. So when I'm on this winning streak, I better keep failure right, because if I keep failure close to my success when I'm on a roll, it will give me humility.
Yeah.
And you've got to have humility to learn and be taught.
That's true.
So with my success, I keep failure together, because in my success, I have humility. Let's go over to I'm in the ditch now. I'm failing. I'm screwing this whole thing up. I got to keep success right beside that failure in my worst days, because it gives me resiliency.
Very good.
You separate them and you lose humility and you lose resiliency. You put them together, now all of a sudden it's a beautiful thing. regardless of what state you're in.
That is tremendous.
Yeah.
By the way, that is true. That could be an entire book, like
Yeah, it
just
really
that
could be.
philosophy. Seriously, you guys.
Yeah.
All right, so you want a game changer for your business? I can tell you what it's been for me, has been for a long time. QuickBooks Bill Pay. Look, if you run a business, you know it's just not what you do, but it's the time you spend doing it. Is that not the truth? And nothing wastes time faster than messy accounts payable issues. By the way, it can absolutely mess up your payroll. It can mess up taxes. QuickBooks Bill Pay is the best at what they do. With QuickBooks Bill Pay, all your bills, vendors, payment info, 1099s, yep, that too, live in one clean dashboard. You instantly see what's due, control who needs to approve it, in your case, and it hits their cash flow. And you choose how and when you spend your money, and you're in control. Start paying bills the smart way, not the hard way. Learn more at quickbooks.com/billpay. Again, that's quickbooks.com/billpay. Terms apply. Money movement services are provided by Intuit Payments, Inc., licensed as a money transmitter by the New York State Department of Financial Services.
I'm watching you right now. I think you're better than I've ever seen you. I'm talking about like your articulation, your communication, the tactical stuff. And by the
It's
way,
about time.
Actually, the truth is that's a pretty high compliment given you are considered by everybody I know the world's greatest leadership expert for the last half century or more. To say that you're better now, and I want to ask you, I'm framing that as a true compliment, but around failure. You said something to me a couple years ago you said a lot of things in life that have stuck with me, but one of them that just blew my doors off. You said, Ed, my capacity to grow is greater than it's ever been before.
Totally.
Meaning not only am I growing more than I've ever grown before, and you're probably 75 at the time, I don't know, probably around there. And you said, not only am I growing more, but my capacity to grow has been expanded. Is part of that because your perspective is your learning and that allows you to view failure differently than most people? In other words, are those two things connected, do you think?
They're very connected. And I'm in love with learning.
I know.
I had somebody the other day say, because they said, what do you love best? I mean, you're a communicator, you're a writer, you're a networker, you're a leadership guy. They threw out about 7. Which are those? And I said, you didn't name any of my favorite thing. I said, my favorite thing's learning. Honestly, and there's a game I play. It takes 3 minutes. I play it probably 6 times a day. And I'll have a moment, or I'll have 3 minutes. It's called Word Seek, and I'm really good with words because I'm good with words, and I'm always in the top 5%. Sometimes I've been a half dozen times number 1 in the world, and I mean just playing this game. Here's your rank. Anyway. The reason I love it is it's a 3-minute game, and when it's done, if I have a good game and puts me in the expert level, I only got about 25% of the words.
What are you trying to do? Figure out a word that's a synonym or something? Or
No, it's scrambled letters, and you make words out of it.
Find the words.
How many
Got
words
it.
can you?
Okay, got it.
It's called Word Seek. Okay. Now, here's what I love about it. And I keep asking myself, why am I so drawn to this game? And I'll tell you why I'm drawn to this game. I'm never going to get there. And never going to get there is highly appealing to me.
I know it is.
I want to tell you something.
I know it is.
You show me a person that wants achievement, but they don't want to be stretched in their life. They're going to be in trouble. And so I love the fact that when I'm done, there's no expert at all. I'm 22%, and I was ranked top. But I'm not top. There's 80%, there's 75% that I never even got off of that. There's something very appealing of never having arrived.
Yeah.
That it's a journey and it's not a destination. And I can remember one of my books I wrote many years ago was called The Success Journey. And my publisher wanted to call it The Destination to Success.
You're like, no
and I
way.
said, no.
Yeah, you wouldn't do that.
There's no destination. It's a journey. There's you never. And so I think there's a lot of that. If you want to constantly grow and learn, I think you look at failure as a terrific asset and not a liability at all.
This is a tremendous conversation we're having right now. That thing you said about there's really not a finish line.
None.
And that you're constantly learning and growing. Yeah. You've really, in my own life, you've challenged my own thinking about that. I began a business career and a pursuit with an idea of finishing.
Of course.
Truly. And then as I got around you, it challenged my perspective about that to where not only have you inspired me not to think that way anymore, but it's freed me up almost.
Oh, it's beautiful. You can fly.
You're right.
Oh, no. You fly. See, and I've started off the same way. I thought, go out, do really well,
Right.
make your money,
Yes.
build your house on the hill,
Yeah.
retire, live happily ever after. You have no needs, no worries. So I think we all start off that way. And then I began to understand the fallacy of that whole process. And so I used to think you do the hard thing, so then it gets easy. And what I discovered is that's not true at all.
It isn't.
You do the hard thing, and if you do it really well, guess what you get? Something harder. You finish hard, and you get, oh my gosh, harder, and you keep climbing harder. And here's what happens: respect is only earned on difficult ground.
So true.
Significance is only taken on difficult ground, Ed. And if you don't have it, so therefore, the fulfillment, the joy, the adrenaline stuff that you want in your life happens in the fact that you're going where you've never been before. You're learning things you've never known before. You're doing things that you've never tried before. And you know you aren't going to do it all right. You know that you're going to have to take detours. You know you're going to have setbacks. But it doesn't matter because you're out there where you're supposed to be. Greatness is designed for somewhere out there that calls for a pioneer.
Gosh.
Not for somebody who sat there and said, you know what? I got it figured out. I tell people, when you think you got it, you're going to get it.
I can absolutely attest that that's
Isn't that true?
I've watched it with my friends over and over. You know, we're having this is a conversation I've not heard on a podcast before, and it's so important. This is one of these things where if you're listening to this, you should go back and listen to this again. Even those of you that are doing, you think you're doing well. That's why, don't you think so many people get to that exit in their company or that point and they're like, it's not what I thought it would be. It's because there isn't really a finish line for these things, and it is disappointing to get there. I also think it causes you to maybe make poor decisions if you think it's going to end. You know, you might cut corners or do things like that instead of being in a pursuit of something. Do you agree with that?
Well, totally. I'll tell you what disappointment is. Disappointment is thinking that there's a place where there's happiness. It's not a destination.
It's not a place.
It's not a place. It's not something I did. It's not some place I arrived. It's what I'm doing. You know, I mean, is there anything more boring than a person that has that been there, done that mindset? Oh, been there, done that. Been there. You just look at it and say, dear God, let me leave you as quick as I can. Because you immediately, that's like expert. It's like expert. I mean, when people talk to me about your leadership expert, I say, I'm not an expert. The more you know you don't know. And the more you know you don't know, the more you know you need to know. Okay. And no matter how much you know, there's more out there. And when I remember when I wrote my first leadership book, I thought, I'll write a very good leadership book, and I'll have done leadership. Well, I wrote that leadership book. It wasn't that good, to be honest with you. And I thought, well, man, there's more that I could write about leadership. Again, once you keep that mindset of learning and growing, it's kind of like you think you're going to figure it out and you think you're going to get to the end, but you're not going to figure it out and you're not going to get to the end. And then one day you wake up and say, I never want to figure it out. I never want to get to the end because it's in the chase.
1,000,000% this is right, by the way. I've just lived it. But you were the first person that came along. You guys, I think every one of my audience thinks I work very hard, and I think I do. You're another level. You're another level. We've flown around together. I've been fortunate to fly with him. The way he flies is very nice. But when you get on the plane with him and there's other people around, it's like, okay, what are you working on? What do you need help with? This is what I'm working on. These are my questions. And he and I are the two weirdos because at some point inevitably everybody else eventually crashes out, and it's John and I together going back and forth. And I'm just learning. But I guess the thing that I think on failure, maybe you cover it in the book, so I'd like you to talk about this. How do you, because, not all failure is good, is it? So, how do you know, or is all good? Meaning, you have this chapter in the book, challenge my thinking on this, or explain it to me. You say, know the difference between a good miss and a bad miss.
Huge.
What's that mean?
Oh, my gosh, I'm so glad you brought it up, Ed. Again, just like keeping failure and success together, I never heard anybody talk about it or read about it until I wrote it.
Yeah, I have not either.
I'm going to tell you something. I've never heard anybody talk about this.
Okay.
But there is a difference between a good miss and a bad
All
miss.
right.
A good miss is still a miss, but you got a little closer. A bad miss, you got a little farther. It's like this. A good miss is when I have a failure. And by the way, you never know whether you have a good miss or bad miss based on what the failure is. It's your response to the failure that determines the good miss and bad miss. Nobody talks about this, but watch this. So let's say I messed something up. So what do I say? Wow, that didn't work. I got to make adjustments. Good miss. Now I'm saying, oh, I've learned that. Don't do that anymore. Change here. I make adjustments. That's a good miss. A bad miss, I make excuses. That's a bad miss. What do you do with excuses except make more excuses? I've never known anybody go from excuse to success. I've never had.
Me either.
I know they go from failure to success, but not because excuses takes awareness. When I make excuses, I personally say I don't want to be aware of what could be out there. Yeah. And you can't fix what you don't know needs to be fixed.
So good.
And so therefore we muddle in. That's a bad miss. We stay in that. But it's the response to the failure that determines whether the miss is a good one or a bad one. So when people say I failed, okay, I got it. I failed a lot of times. Let's talk about your response. What's your response? Because when these guys are saying the greatest lesson I ever learned had failure in it, it's because they had good misses.
Outstanding.
When people say, I'm done, it's over, it's terrible, it's because they had bad misses.
Outstanding.
Doesn't that make sense?
Yes. There's a part of the book, which I'm going to let you guys read in the book, about kind of the victim identity that we take on that goes down this road also.
Totally.
It's earlier in the book than this part. Yeah, I've had some bad misses too.
Yeah.
I've had some bad misses where I pointed fingers and didn't learn from it. And
Of course.
a lot of times you end up repeating that mistake in another form if you don't take something from it.
You either learn from the failure, which is a good miss, or you leave the failure, which is a bad miss. And most people, they want to leave the scene as quick as they, oh my gosh, what happened? It wasn't me. And but the moment you leave, you learn nothing. Leaving is a bad miss because it doesn't let you didn't stay around long enough to learn.
That's so good.
And you just have to, I tell people all the time, hey, you got to hang with your failure a while. This is good. There's a lot to learn here. Don't get off the operating table too quickly. Let the surgeon do the work.
The other thing you don't do, at least in my observation, I need to do better at this, but I want to talk about leading other people through failure. Meaning, one thing I've watched, I'll just leave it at that, but I don't see you, when you course correct or coach, my observation of you don't seem to be judging the person's failure. And even when some of them have been some, failures, judgment failures, we'll say, right? So how do you lead somebody, whether that be business or a child of yours, and maybe it's different in those two, and take your time on either one. But what's your philosophy on leading others through a failure?
Well, first of all I have to do is look at my failures. And it takes me off the judgment roll real quick. I mean, my gosh, I have had. In fact, I think highly successful people probably fail more than unsuccessful.
I agree with that.
Because they keep trying. They're out there attempting. And so if you attempt 1,000 times, you're going to have several hundred misses. If you attempt 10, you may only have 6 or 7. So I think the effort creates a lot of possibilities for failure. But when I look at that failure, what I understand is, and trying to help other people through it, is two things. One is, nothing helps people handle failure more than me to talk to them about my failures.
Okay.
I mean, Ed, I've heard you talk, and when you do some of your teaching, you're a master at talking about the hard lessons that you learned in that process that brought. So you do to tell people you have failed. And then them to look at you and see where you are.
Yes, that's
great.
great.
Now, here's what I tell: when successful people talk about their failures, then failure gets tagged with successful people.
This guy is just
but watch
crazy
this.
Good. He's
when
so good.
But when you watch people that have failed talk about their failure, you say, "Oh my God, don't want to do that. That's a loser for sure." And so what I say is, when you're successful, the more you talk about failure, the more you help people see it from a perspective of positivity. And so you do a great, because here's what happens. Okay, Ed, I join your team, and you're highly successful, and I'm just starting out. I'm a newbie, and I hope I do it right. You're talking about all your successes, and then I go out, and of course, I don't do it right. You're never good the first time. You're never good the second time. It's like your daughter. What happens when you have 5 calls and they're all no's? So you're not good. Well, immediately I look at you and I thought, well, look at Ed. Oh my gosh, he's so good. And then what do? I disqualify myself.
Yeah, amen.
I just said, well, I don't have his gifts. I don't get his opportunity. And so what happens is, when you talk about the success, you discourage people. When you talk about failure, you encourage people. Especially when you're a successful failure.
Gosh, that's so true.
It's so
My
encouraging.
gosh.
It lifts, because guess what? When you talk about your failures, but I see that you've overcome them. So when I fail, I say, well, Ed did that. But look, he overcome it. I can overcome them too. It's a whole different mindset. And I wish that successful people, I wish they would talk about their failures more.
So do I.
Because that's where the learning and the growing is. And I'll tell you what else. I'm 78, and people are seeing me kind of like the highlight of my life. I wish they could see me at 28. Yeah. If I could have one genie wish, it would be, I wish you could have seen me communicate at 28. I wasn't that good. I wish you could, because they would be greatly encouraged. What they're doing is they're seeing a man who has done 50 plus years of personal daily growth every day. And so, yes, it's kind of like in the beginning, you're not as bad as people think you are, but in the end, you're really not as good as people think you are either. And I have this great desire to let everybody know, I wasn't really that good. You just have to understand. I made a commitment to intentionally grow and develop myself, but I wasn't that good. I wasn't. And if they would have seen me, they would have see not the end result, but they would see what growth will do for a person.
But John, I've watched it in the last 10 years that I've been your friend. I've actually watched it at this stage of your life.
Better.
Growth. You are getting better.
I'm getting better. I am.
Is there, in those 50 years, is there a particular situation where you failed that you could maybe share that did cause you to grow or make a pivot or look at failure differently? Do you think of one? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot, but I mean, is there one that stands out?
When I was 40, I did inventory, kind of that midlife kind of halftime thing, and I got a little discouraged because I thought, I'm not quite as far as I thought I would get. And so I did the personal inventory. Why am I not as far as I got? And I came to a conclusion about 3 days later that I had spent a lot of time on my personal growth and development, but I hadn't spent enough time on developing my team. And I said, Maxwell, if you don't grow your team, they can't go with you. And so I made a pivot, and I said, I am going to really work on growing and developing my team. And that was one of the best decisions I ever made. But it was one of those times at halftime where I had to come and ask myself, am I willing to now make this big transition?
Right.
And it goes back to the law of the inner circle and the 21 laws. Those closest to you determine the level of your success. And it was at that moment I thought, I will never hit my level of success unless I have great people around me. So I had better. We can only grow so much in personal capacity, but we can grow a lot more in team capacity.
Very good.
And so the idea of partnershiping and teamwork, there's something really beautiful about developing a great team until that 1 and 1 doesn't really, after a while, equal 2. It equals 3. There's a compounding there of that.
So many of you have asked how to see me speak live, and for the first time ever, you can come see me speak live in person. All of my speeches have been private events, but now I'm teaming up with LifeSurge, speaking all over the country. LifeSurge is a one-day faith-based event where you'll walk in hungry for success, and you'll leave ready to build your resources to leave an impact on others. We're talking faith-fueled finance, growing your resources, crushing obstacles, and then, using it all for something way bigger than yourself. I'm joining LifeSurge in a few cities this year, and I'd love to see you there. I'll be sharing the stage with legends such as 2-time football champion Tim Tebow, star of Duck Dynasty Willie Robertson, and leadership hero of mine John Maxwell, pastor and author Craig Groeschel, and worship with artists like Natalie Grant. Tickets are on sale at lifesurge.com. And just for my listeners, you can use the code ED30 for 30% off a ticket. There will be a link in the show notes, so click through and take some time to join us. Cities are being added all the time, so if you don't see one near you now, check back. I hope to see you there.
Do you wish your last book, we're talking about, more like public leaders and stuff, and do you feel like if I'm a leader, I want you to give advice to leaders out there, and you have had a failure or a setback or a mistake, one of the things I wish for, like in our public discourse, like our politicians, is for a leader to say, made a mistake. I got this one wrong. I apologize. I'm going to course correct this. My intent wasn't to do this, but I blew it. I missed the call there, and we're going to get it right next time. It's almost like, it seems like in our culture today, failure is such a bad thing that if you even admit one, you're somehow you're disqualified forever. Do you feel that way too? I wish more of and so if you're speaking to someone who runs a company or leads a family, which is a leader, a mother that's listening to this, it's okay to acknowledge you've had a failure or a setback or made a mistake. And that's a redemptive thing to do, an important thing to do.
For both you and the person who's hearing you. It's a two-way redemptive thing. When I admit my failures, I get in touch with my humanity, which allows me now to be able to really grow. So it's good for me, but it's also good for the other person. It's funny because I remember last year when we had a couple candidates running for president. I told Margaret before the first presidential debate, I said, I know who I'm going to vote on. And she said, well, who are you going to vote on for? I said, the first person in the debate that looks in the camera and said, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
I didn't do that right. Oh, I wish I could have that. I wish I could do that decision over again. I said, the first person that shows any kind of authenticity, any kind of in touch with who they are, that doesn't blame the other person for all the problems in the world. I said, I'm just going to, and I just sat there and I thought,
it'd be a long wait.
All right, I'm voting for you. Just one time. Just tell me one time. Of course, there was no, and you and I both know that is, first of all, untrue. We're all human. And number two, it's unhealthy. It's unhealthy because we set a standard that is not livable by anybody. And now instead of us having freedom, we're under incredible bondage and stress, and it does all kind of emotional things that people don't want.
That is such an important thing because it's not modeled. You're not seeing that from most public leadership right now. Yet the leaders that I've worked with in my life that I admire the most have done exactly what you say to do. I messed that up. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Please forgive me. I'm going to get it right next time.
And people just can hardly wait to forgive you.
I actually think, ironically, kind of like what you said about overall failure, I actually got much closer to that person as a leader. It almost as if that setback or mistake, the decision they made that didn't go the right way, was actually an odd blessing long term because their acknowledgement of it built a level of trust that didn't exist when everything was perfect.
My inner circle, they know my strengths and they know my weaknesses. They know my best victories and they know my biggest losses. And I want to tell you, they're close to me because they know my biggest losses.
Yep. You also told me when I got to know you better, which just for what it's worth, I just want to say this back to you, this how much I am listening. You told me, hey, Ed, reveal your imperfections to people. You'll become much closer to them if you try to appear to be perfect all the time. Yeah. And I really I've really heeded that advice. By the way, it's so freeing.
Oh, yes.
To not try to have to live up to some standard that I know is not accurate, right? I know that it is. I got a hard question for you on failure. So we're talking about this whole failure thing. Sometimes, do you worry at all that as we embrace failure, and I think you'll know what I mean when I say this, so I want you to speak to it. There's this whole book you've written, it's gold, and obviously just even the nuggets that we've talked about today. But can you go a little too far on that where you accept failures in your life? Do you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
Where you know what I mean? Like I want to have a guardrail on this to some extent because some people take this and just go, well, then I don't have to have any successes. I don't have to have any breakthroughs. You know what I'm saying? That does become part of a culture. So speak to that.
Well, what I say all the time is failure should move you. And when we become comfortable with failure, we're in trouble. So failure should move you. Failure is your friend, not because you had the failure. It's your friend because it says you better change something. And people change when they hurt enough they have to, when they learn enough they know how to, and when they receive enough they're able to. And so that's the change pattern of people.
Good.
So when I fail, I'm embracing failure as a friend because it raised its hand and said, John, wrong way. You don't want to go here. And now it creates awareness. Failure treated correctly makes me aware of changes I need to make. Failure prospectively incorrectly is when I look at it and instead of saying I'm aware and I must change, I look at it and I say, I just can't do any better and make excuses. And so but it's a catalyst. Failure is a catalyst to either have a person change for the better, or it's a catalyst for a person to say, I'm a victim, and that's this way it's going to be, and that's my life, and I can't help it.
What's the Bible say about failure?
Well, the Bible's beautiful about failure. I mean, think about it. First of all, the Bible never hid failures. There are only 2 people in the Bible that there's nothing about their life in failure. There's only 2 great ones, and that's Joseph and Nehemiah. They're the only 2 biblical characters where you look at their life and every other biblical character, David. Well, there's some murder and adultery
that's an
going on
obvious
there.
one, right?
And remember this: God looked at David and said, "You're a man after my own heart." Mm-hmm. Now, David's frontline people in his kingdom didn't say that. Mm-hmm. God said that. I mean, God looked at a guy that we would look and say, he's not even fit to be in this thing. And he said, you're a man after my own heart. I mean, look at Moses and the great men and women of leaders, honestly, they all had failure in their life. The Bible doesn't try to cover that all. See, the Bible's, one of the things that's beautiful about God's word and God is he's not transactional at all. God doesn't say, Maxwell, measure up, but guess I think I'm going to let you in.
Right.
He's transformational. He doesn't work on a transactional. It's I don't earn anything. The very fact of forgiveness is a fact that God knows how to handle failure well.
Come on, you guys. This is so good.
In our lives. Oh, my God. And it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. That's very comforting to me.
Same here, brother. Makes me emotional as you're saying
me too.
Yeah, I know.
It's because we have a wonderful God. That's why it makes me emotional.
Thank God for God's grace.
Hey, so somebody says, if I don't have God's grace, I don't think I can make it. I should explain something. If you don't have God's grace, you don't make it.
You do not.
Hey,
this is definitive.
I thought for a moment you were entertaining a possibility. Remove that possibility out of your life, sir. It isn't going to happen.
You're just such a treasure in my life, and something happens when we do this.
Magic.
I don't know what it is, but it's
Ed, I do interviews. You do interviews. We all do interviews. You're the best interviewer.
Oh my God!
Now listen to me. The first time we did it out in Los Angeles, we sat down and it clicked.
Yes.
And I walked away and I said it clicked because this man, you have a great gift of intuition and discernment. And when you're with people, you see the person, but you see what's behind. And you are a great interviewer because you don't state the obvious. You go behind the curtain and you pull out the best in people. And I think the better people that you interview, the better interviews you get because it's all inside, but you have the ability to dig for that gold and get it. You're a great interviewer.
I don't mean to say this. We're going back and forth. You do that to me. You do that for me myself. You know what? One thing about leadership, you guys, is when you know someone truly believes in you.
Oh, totally.
It's so I feel that from you.
It's a game changer,
right? It's one of those elements. It's different. I even think with our children, loving our children is obviously it's entry into the game. I mean, you're supposed to love your children, but believing in them and them knowing you believe in them, or as a leader in a company, that's a different thing.
Oh, it's the greatest gift we could ever give anyone is the same gift that God gave us. Unconditional love. While we were yet sinners.
Yeah.
God loved us. Not when we got our act together. Not when we all of a sudden made a better presentation. While we were yet sinners. While we were already screwed up. While we were already... You see, God doesn't fix us to change us. He changes us to fix us. Ooh. There's a lot of difference between those two.
When you have the camera guys going, hey, man, they're naughty. You're spitting truth. Can I ask you one more thing? Because we're going to wrap it up. I just want to ask you about this one thing that is another thing you have. It's not in the book.
Yeah, okay.
You want others to succeed. Were you this way when you were young? And let me tell you what I mean. I want everyone to understand this. One time he gave a speech that I thought was just incredible every time he speaks. But I was with him afterwards. I said, that was just mind blowing. And he goes, oh, here's a note. You should give this speech. You do it better than I would.
I remember that.
And
you did it better than me too.
Absolutely untrue that I did it better than you.
No.
However, there's a lot
that.
of this kind of protection thing with leaders or just people in life, because I think they think, if you succeed, I'm going to fail.
Wrong.
So I want to wrap this part at the end around failure. You look at it completely differently than that. How do you look at it?
I want more for you than I want from you. And when I remember, in fact, we were in Nashville.
Yes.
And I just finished talking, and we had me sitting beside, and I just kind of put the speech together, and really,
it's unreal that you did that.
Well, and I think I looked at you and I thought, here, you have it. You'll make it better. And can I tell you, I know you will make it better. And here's why: if you gave me one of your speeches, I could make it better. And it's not because I'm better; it's because you already gave me a foundation.
Yeah.
I already got what you got. Now, if I get one more thing, it just got better. But I wouldn't have had that one little thing if you wouldn't have given me the foundation. And so, when I was young, Ed, I played ball, and I was very competitive. And I think there's a lot of things about competitive people that's a real advantage to them. So I'm not anti-competitiveness, but here's what I wanted to say. In my own heart, I had a major life change when I lost that competitiveness and decided I would rather help other people succeed. Because if I win, it's only one. If they win, it's a whole bunch.
Very good. Yeah.
And I just, at this stage of my life, I get more joy out of someone else's success.
You do.
I mean, I've got stuff under my belt. I'm okay. But I just, I like to see people do well.
I know you do, and I love you for it. By the way, the lesson there is that if someone else is succeeding, it doesn't mean you're failing.
Oh.
And that's one of the topics of failure that I wanted to make sure we covered. I just want to thank you. This is such a tremendous conversation. And real rare when I do the show that as we're doing it, I'm thinking of people that I want to share the episode with. I always tell the audience, make sure you share this with someone you care about. I'm thinking right now of the people that I want to share this with, beginning with my daughter, who we talked about in the very beginning. So I love you.
Love you.
God bless you. By the way, the book, you guys, is How to Get a Return on Failure. You know you're getting it now. Fail Smarter, Return Stronger. It is, it's tremendous. He's the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you, everybody. Share this episode. Max out.